But before we start, please give the video a like and make sure to subscribe to Wonderbot and hit the bell so you'll never miss any uploads from us. No one really remembers preschool. Sure, nap time was pretty great, but prodding the corners of your memory for that killer sleep you took at age 4 might prove fruitless. And any macaroni art you created during that time was likely long forgotten and will stay that way until someone digs your masterpiece out of a box in the attic. But these two preschoolers formed a friendship so strong that years later, after they'd been moved far away from each other, one couldn't help but remember the other. So, curiosity finally winning out, she looked up her old friend, hoping their happy memories had stood the test of time. When Natalie Crow and Austin Tatman were only 4 years old, they had a special friendship. They clicked from the moment they met in preschool and knew that they found their BFF, at least for the time being. As kids, they were inseparable, and it didn't hurt that their families got along really well. Neither parents minded taking their kids all over Florida for camping, fishing, and even Disney trips. But even if they weren't doing anything special, these kids always had the best of times whenever they were together. It was a very, very special bond that we shared, Natalie said. Not only did their parents realize their children had something unique, but their teachers and even the other kids noticed it too. At times they'd get teased about being boyfriend and girlfriend, but they were far too young for feelings like that. Still, the two didn't behave like the rest of the kids their age. On Halloween in 1999, Natalie said, Austin held my hand in the car on the way to trick-or-treating. Even their parents knew the interactions weren't normal. To Natalie and Austin, it seemed as if the fun would never end. They felt safe in the idea that they'd always have a friend in each other. Sadly, that image was shattered when Natalie received some shocking news at 5 years old. Natalie's parents were getting divorced, and her mom was moving to Connecticut, which was more than 1,200 miles away from Austin. Just like that, the fairy tale friendship was over. I remember the very last day I saw him, Natalie recalled. My last memory of him is when we made Rice Krispie treats in his parents' kitchen, and then we were separated. Throughout the following decade, Natalie would sporadically think of Austin. Her memories were a bit fuzzy, but she remembered always being with him and always being happy. She wondered if he would remember her too, but she had no way of reaching out. In her new hometown in Connecticut, Natalie made plenty of friendships, but none of them were quite like the one she used to have in Florida. When she was 17 years old, however, she went through her mom's old address book and found something curious. It was Austin's last name. After a quick Facebook search, she couldn't believe her luck. She'd found the Austin Tatman she'd been missing all this time. After she sent a friend request, it didn't take long for him to accept, and the two started chatting. Since Natalie's dad still lived close to Austin's house, the old friends made plans to reunite as soon as Natalie was back in town. That meeting went well, so they planned another. Eventually, after several hangouts and long phone calls, they realized that connection between them, despite the distance, never faded. They started dating and even attended Austin's prom together. Both sets of our parents were so supportive when we first reconnected, Austin said. They were just as excited, if not more excited than we were, Natalie added. They were both over the moon about us getting together, but not as over the moon as they were. We both knew we were in love with each other after being on our second date, Natalie said. We rekindled the friendship on the first day of reuniting and then being alone. It was like, okay, whatever time that may be, I'm gonna marry you. While they weren't exactly at that stage yet, they did manage to keep their love alive while living far away. Luckily, technology allowed them to video chat whenever they wanted, and the hope that they would truly be together someday kept them hopeful. Then came the time for Natalie to graduate high school and decide on a university. Would she stay in Connecticut with her family and friends, or would she choose to attend college back in Florida so she could finally be close to Austin? It wasn't an easy choice. But Natalie knew in her heart that she had always wanted to be back in Florida, exchanging smiles with Austin every single day. So she applied to the University of Central Florida, unsure if she'd even get in. After weeks of anticipation, she received the letter she'd been waiting for. Hastily, she tore it open and read that she'd been accepted to UCF. Now the old friend's life together could finally begin, although the biggest surprise had yet to come. In 2017, when they were both 22 years old, Austin proposed to Natalie on the beach where they used to play in the sand. Surrounded by their families, she said yes and began planning a wedding for April 13th, 2019. Who else gets to say they married their preschool sweetheart? To honor their 20-year bond, they recreated pictures of their childhood, which they hung up all over their wedding. Who knew that these two kids would become husband and wife someday? When the couple exchanged their I do's, there wasn't a dry eye to be found. There's a reason I went through my mom's archives and found an address book, and there's a reason that we went to separate colleges, Natalie said. It was kind of crazy how everything came together so perfectly, and it still doesn't make sense to me to this day. At the end, we want to know your opinion about the story in the comments box below.